anybody who tells you that.
Welcome to Top of Search with Robin and Abe, where we talk about e-commerce, Amazon, and more.
Welcome to Top of Search. Today we're talking about something that's really fundamental to running good ads. Whether you're auditing what your agency is doing or you're running ads yourself, making sure that you understand the fundamentals of match types is really, really important to making sure that you're getting the most out of your ad dollars. So, Abe is the one that has hands on the accounts all the time. So we're going to start by just going through all the different kinds of match types that are available. And then we're going to circle back to some important points so that you make sure you're getting the most out of your advertising spend. So Abe, where did you want to start today?
So the first step is, of course, when we are running ads, we need to know how to build an ad campaign. Amazon asks us very basic questions. First question is, of course, what do you want to name your campaign? I keep forgetting what the second question is, but one of the very first questions that Amazon is going to ask you is, what kind of match types would you like your ads according to? And Amazon gives us a bunch of those options, and understanding how Amazon treats each match type and what Amazon does with your keyword for each match type is really fundamental to building out an ad campaign properly. When you understand how match types work, you understand how things connect to each other in a campaign. You understand how things will react when you do two things that look similar but have a difference of a match type. You'll understand why you will want to take a keyword and put it in multiple match types, and they won't necessarily overlap. We'll take a little bit of time and break down the basic set of ways that Amazon can place your ad.
Just to build on what you said, it also might be why you might see a keyword that's really, really important with a low bid or a low budget, or it might even be negative matched on a campaign. So understanding these is going to help you better understand how your agency or how you need to set up campaigns to make sure you have the ability to turn things up and down so you get the most performance out of your campaigns.
Yeah, within the world of campaigns, there is a lot that we can do. There are waterfall campaigns in which we'll run the same type of campaign with different levels of budgets and bids. There are campaigns in which we intentionally build a separate campaign for each little building block that is included in the match type. We can get into all those, but of course, the first starting point is to understand what Amazon will do with our terms, where they'll put them and how they'll treat them. There's really two parts of it. One is where they'll put our keywords, and the other thing is how they'll treat our keywords. If we take the first basic building block, what is a keyword? The keyword is the thing we type into Amazon to tell Amazon where we'd like our product to show. Now, although it's called keyword, it can have several words in it.
I usually tell people to think about it as like keyword phrases, and each keyword phrase is like a door that helps people access your product.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. I mean, and like the simplest example is going to be, there's a million simple examples. I started out with Nike Air Jordans, but yes, Nike Air Jordan is 3 words, but that is going to be considered one keyword. And if you type it in 100 different ways, it'll be 100 different keywords, but each grouping of words is its own keyword. So that is different from a search term. A search term is what the shopper types. In an ideal world, what you target and what the shopper types will be the same thing, but often they are not. And that's where match types come in. So let's break them down, shall we? And so the first thing we're going to start off with are automatic campaigns. Automatic campaigns are, as they sound, something that Amazon does automatically for you as you run your advertising. You basically tell Amazon the product you want to advertise, give them a little bit of information like how much you'd want to spend, and Amazon will put the product anywhere they think you should show up. Now, even though I just said that, Amazon does give us a little bit of control. Within the type of automatic campaign, they have 4 subtypes. The 4 subtypes each behave a little bit differently. I'm going to go over them. The first one is called the close match. So essentially, they'll show you for searches which are close to what they think your product is. The next one is called a loose match, in which they'll show you for things they think you are loosely like. The third thing is a substitute, in which they think you are exactly the replacement for this product. And a complement is sort of like an accessory. Going back to the sneaker analogy, if you sell shoelaces, you would be a complement to a pair of sneakers. If you are a shoe cleaning product, you will be a complement to buying a pair of shoes. So those are the 4 rough places that Amazon will distribute you widely. And what we find in our experience is that close match and substitutes tend to perform well Relatively speaking, boost match and complements tend to perform poorly. We'll start out with all of those types running, but we will typically close down the poorer running pair pretty quickly afterwards, in my experience. So that is Amazon's automatic match type. The next match type we have is called exact. As the name suggests, it is basically exactly the way you type your keyword is the exact way Amazon will show your searches on Amazon. So if you type black iPhone case, you will only show for when somebody types black iPhone case, not any other way, any other misspelling or typo or exact word, only black iPhone case. There is one exception. The exception is plurals. Plural and singular, Amazon considers them the same. So they will show you for black iPhone cases with the S at the end. They'll show you for black iPhone case. Interestingly enough, even though you are only needing to type one of them, when we build out campaigns, we'll actually put out we'll build out the plural and the singular as two separate keywords in an ad campaign, simply because I'm of the opinion that the more closely tied you are to what gets searched, the better Amazon will reward you. And that does go down even to that last letter. It's a theory. There's very little data to support it. Amazon doesn't really give us great information in the search term results. That was one or the other that we showed up for, but I throw them in there. So that's our exact match campaign. It's supposed to be the tightest and most focused compared to the way that you put your keyword into Amazon. The next match type that we have is called a phrase match. Phrase match is taking your exact match term and giving Amazon a little bit more leeway. Amazon uses that leeway to put extra words at the beginning or the end of your phrase. So if you have black iPhone case, Amazon will take that black iPhone case and write black iPhone case for iPhone 13. Amazon will write plastic black iPhone case. They can put words onto the beginning or onto the end, as many as they want. That gives you a little bit more flexibility because sometimes shoppers use many words in their searches in combinations you might not have thought of. So casts a little bit wider. Of course, the flip side is they can add words that don't match your product. We'll get back to how to control for that in a little bit. But it is a little bit wider of a net than an exact match. The widest net, aside from auto, is called a broad match. And a broad match is one in which Amazon will take your keyword and Amazon will essentially do anything they want while keeping to the spirit of your keyword. So they will change your keyword into different languages. They will change it into regional dialects. My favorite example there is soda and pop. Parts of the country use pop, parts of the country use soda. If you pick one keyword, they will show you for the other. Of course, they add words, and sometimes they do a great job of finding a thing you might not have thought of, which is your product. And sometimes they do a really terrible job. Basically, you are giving Amazon the widest net to cast. There are ways to control for it. Again, we'll get to those, just like with phrases as well. The next thing we have is product targeting. Obviously, your product is often similar to many other products on Amazon, whether it's one or many. It's very unusual, very unlikely for a product to truly be a one-of-one kind of thing. And we often want to show and take sales from our competitors. We also want to defend our product against competitors, and that's where product targeting comes in. So we can run ads intended to target our competitors directly as opposed to targeting keywords. In addition to that, we've got what's called category targeting. Now, those are the basic group of match types which have to do with sponsored product ads. The next vertical, the next main ad type you're asked to select by Amazon is called sponsored brand. Putting aside what sponsored brand is, Amazon has two placements for sponsored brand. They have a headline at the top of the ad, at the top of the product page. It's called sponsored brand headline ads. And then they've got product videos. Product videos can show in a few different places, but they're called sponsored brand video ads. Within sponsored brand headline and within sponsored brand video, we've also got those three match types that we spoke about a second ago. We do have exact, phrase, and broad, and you can apply those to either the banner at the top, or you can apply it to your videos. That covers the ad type of sponsored brands. And then last and least, depending on what you're trying to do with it, is sponsored display. Sponsored display behaves very differently from the other two. The first two types, sponsored product and sponsored brand, are focused off of keywords or products. Those are the main types of ways you can target things. You're basically picking the words that arise from a search on Amazon. Sponsored display works differently. Sponsored display targets audiences. So Amazon knows a little bit about everybody that shops on Amazon. and they typically build all of the information that they have into an audience. One audience might be people who have looked at your product. One audience might be people who have purchased your product in the past. There are all sorts of audiences that you can build out. There's like many, many beyond those few first examples, and you can build out audiences and say, I want to show my product to these audiences. Typically should be rolled into your advertising after the first two types are running and running effectively. This is a supplemental piece of ads. It will deliver a supplemental piece of sales. It is very rarely the thing you build your business on. Very, very rarely. Not 0% of the time, but like real close to it. Anybody who tells you that they did a thing with a sponsored display ad and rocketed their sales from 0 to 1 million, run far away, because that is not how most accounts work. So we basically got a bunch of different ways that Amazon can take our keyword and treat it. And we've got a bunch of different places that we can show those ads. Now, although we are doing a little bit of steering with these match types, of course, we would like to do more steering. We want our spend to be as effective as possible. Even though we have a little bit of extra leeway, even then we want to keep our reins on the product. So Amazon gives us a couple of ways to make additional adjustments. So the first way that you can make adjustments is, of course, with bids. You can spend more or less on any individual point, and that is, of course, the main way of controlling where a product will show up. Spend more, you're more likely to be at the top of the page. Spend less, you are less likely to be at the top of the page. Usually, aside from relevance, that's the simple correlation. In addition to that, there are two others. The first one is a negative match on a search term. What's a negative match? A negative match means when you look at the data Amazon gives you about how your ads are running, with everything except exact, you will see search terms that are different than the keyword you picked. I gave you the example of a black iPhone case with the extra words for in it. You'll see that in the data. Now, some of the times it's going to be a perfect match because you sell a case for an iPhone 13, but if you're selling a case for an iPhone 15, iPhone 13 search term does not match your product. You don't want to show any more than what happened already. You can tell Amazon, I do not want to show for this search term anymore. You make it negative. The more search terms that you make negative, the more Amazon understands the idea behind what you're making negative, and they'll steer whatever traffic they run in the future more towards what you let run. So those are negative matches. They basically make a narrower and narrower tunnel for Amazon to run those additions onto. The last thing are broad match modifiers. Broad match modifiers are essentially a plus sign that you can add when you create a keyword, and that tells Amazon that you do not have free reign to translate my words into anything and everything. It is telling Amazon that I am requiring those words to be in the final result. You can change the order. I'm not sure if foreign language is considered equivalent even with the modifier or not, but you can change the order. You can do other things with it. Those words must be in there. You can insert words in between. You can do a lot of things that go beyond what phrase match does, because phrase match needs to show it exactly in the order as well. So you can change the order, you can insert things in there, and you can basically tell Amazon, do what you want, but keep my words in there. So that's the little bit of extra piece of control that you get with broad match, which tends to go haywire more than the other manual types. Now, as of the day I'm recording this is correct as best as I know it. It's almost guaranteed that tomorrow morning they're going to roll out a new match type, but this is what I have for today.
Well, now that we've talked about kind of giving you the definitions and an introduction to those different types of match types and the controls we really use to make sure that your ads are performing at the best possible level, I want to go through a couple things that we hear often that Abe and I probably roll our eyes at when people say it, and some misconceptions that people have. And I'm going to kind of follow the same order that we talked about. And the first thing we talked about was automatic and the 4 match types: close, loose, complements, and substitutes. And well, we don't need to dig into automatic too much. One of the things that I hear sometimes is automatic is only for beginners. It means that your ad person doesn't know what they're doing if they're using automatic.
No, that is
not true.
That is not true at all. In fact, campaigns which are thoroughly built out and are missing an automatic element are typically missing out on sales, almost always. For some reason, Amazon will show keywords which are targeted elsewhere, also in an automatic campaign for very little money. No idea why it happens, but everyone sees it in their search term reports. So you're getting those sales more cheaply than you're getting even in places you target intentionally. Amazon will almost always find ways you have not thought of showing your ads. They will show up in your automatic campaigns. And almost most importantly, there are places in automatic campaigns that no other match type shows. So when Amazon runs deals, they have pages on Amazon dedicated to those deals. They have a page for their whatever is on a lightning deal right now. They have a page for deals of the day. They have different pages on Amazon, which you cannot target directly with any of the other types, but automatic campaigns are feeding placements there. So you are absolutely missing out on the last piece of where your ads could be showing by not running automatic at all. So yes, it is not only for beginners. It is very much a piece of what should be in every ad picture.
Was a time when you could just run automatic, if you're in a very niche product, but most often now automatic is not going to be enough, but it is a table stake to have even for well-developed ad campaigns.
Yeah. So we call it table stakes because it is fundamental. It absolutely should be running at any built out set of. At the same time, I personally don't love running it on day one. With the avatar of the products that we sell most frequently, we are trying to build an audience. And to some extent, we're often trying to teach Amazon what our product is on day one. So the way we teach our product what Amazon is by running the most targeted traffic we can to it. And autos are the opposite of that most targeted campaign traffic. So we'll typically start out with an exact, and then we'll widen that scope. We'll widen that net over a space of a few weeks or a month. Auto campaigns tend to come in last once Amazon has been trained on what our product is and we are like and where we should show up.
And we tend to run automatics a little bit earlier, but a lot of our brands are in brick and mortar. They already have brand awareness. They have branded search and volume. And the other thing is a lot of times we're taking over accounts. And so Amazon has already identified what that product is. So there are different ways to approach it. And you want to consider kind of what are the components that are going to help Amazon understand your product as quickly as possible, and making sure that you're focusing on getting early conversions to help Amazon and reinforce that this is the right kind of keyword for your product.
Yeah, there's balancing against focusing your traffic. There is also a need to get as much data as possible, as fast as possible. The more data you have, the more actions you can take to refine the traffic as well. So a larger budget will get you more of that traffic that you can tell. Higher bids on individual keywords will get you more traffic than lower bids, which might not show all the time. And yes, running every match type will get you a large flow of data to make adjustments to. And as much as we want to train things exactly at the beginning, we also want to get as much data as possible. And although it's the opposite of training the system, getting a flood of data on day one and making changes much faster is absolutely a valid way to do things.
And this is a weird side note, but also if you're getting automatic campaigns and you're doing them at launch and you're seeing the wrong things, always check your category, because the category does affect relevancy for ads, especially early on. So I know that's a weird segue, but let's go to the other match types that are specifically for manual campaigns. So for manual campaigns, we've got exact, phrase, broad, and then we're going to use those things like the broad plus modifier, like negative keywords. Now, when somebody comes from Google, and I've heard people from Amazon say this too, is start with broad, go to exact, and then only use exact. I think Abe and I both disagree with that. We believe that all match types should be tested. We have found that for different products, one will work better for others. And we find that if you go, there's products that we've looked at it. If we went from one end, like from broad to exact or exact to broad, both directions, we would have missed really, really important keywords. So you want to test and have those different match types. It also gives you more levers to be able to pull, to isolate, to amplify keywords that are doing really well. And even if you find just the right match type for just the right keywords, tomorrow it will be different. So we want to keep those campaigns up, running, continuing to be optimized so that you get the most out of each dollar spent.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. Really, we can attack this in different ways. We can attack it with a lot of spend. We can attack it with less spend at first. We can attack it with every match type, or we can target it with very focused match types at the beginning. And each way is a way to get to the goal. You just have to be clear about what fits best for your product, what fits best for your budget. That's going to always be the key. When we look at ad accounts for the first time, is we often see only one match type or only one or two match types in an account. Some of them don't make sense to me at all. Now, what happens is about half the time, somebody did it randomly. It was just what popped up on the screen at the moment they were creating a campaign, and they just went with it, and then they let the ads run. But sometimes there is actual thinking behind it. They will say, no, I match very well for this. I don't match very well for this, and I'm just building my ad campaigns around it. That's less common. Most of the time, a very limited structure will suggest that somebody just gave up with the complexity at some point, but it does happen.
So when we look at accounts that have been active for over 3 to 6 months and we see that not all match types have been tested, it doesn't mean that everything's wrong and horrible, but it does make us want to dig in deeper to see if we can identify whether that was a thoughtful choice or that was just we never got around to making that other campaign or ad group.
Ideally, you want to have all the bases covered. All those match types that I listed in the beginning with a mature product, you should have every single one of those ad types running, and they should all be a piece of the picture. Some will do more selling for you, some will do less selling for you, but they should all be there. And if you're missing any of these, unless there is an intentional reason why it's not there, layer it in.
For the person who is listening, hoping that they would find out what is the right match type, I got bad news for you. There is no right match type. And even if you did find one, tomorrow it would be wrong. So we'd want to test all match types most of the time. There's always an exception to the rule, but we want to test those different match types. The other thing that is a big red flag when we're auditing accounts is if the account has been running for a while, we want to see that negative matching is happening at pretty much all of those match types. Now, there can be exceptions to that, but we want to see that they're using negative match, because what we want to do is we want to make sure that when we're using all these match types, we're isolating things in a way where we'll be able to turn down the keywords that are not performing and turn up the keywords, and having the segmentation of having lots of campaigns or lots of ad groups where we can have isolate individual pieces, that helps us increase performance.
Yes, that's definitely true. Like I said, if you're if you're only seeing one or two match types, there's almost definitely a hole there.
Sometimes we'll have a client that will, decide to go look through the account, and they'll be like, "Oh no, you negative and matched the most important keyword for us." And, and it's important if you're auditing your agency's work, and also for you to know if you're working to do this, you might match a keyword in one type of match type because it's performing better in another match type, or we have a different placement modifier that's doing better. So when you're looking at things, we won't want to look at things just at that isolated piece. We want to look at how each of these keywords are being affected by multiple campaigns, and that we're making sure we're strategically, with thoughtfulness, turning up and turning things down to make sure that we're minimizing leaking spend as much as possible.
Yeah, it's funny because what you said is sort of fighting words. There is a big point of contention in our little Amazon world about what we should do with overlapping keywords. So we can put a keyword in every match type. We can put that black iPhone case in broad, phrase, and exact. We can add modifiers to it, but it can be in a bunch of places. And sometimes we will say, listen, we would like to isolate it down to one match type by cutting out the more poorly performing positions of those. The other way of thinking is, no, we want to leave match types everywhere and just make adjustments to them. I'm personally of the belief that unless there's really poor performance, if it's just different performance, let it be where it is and make it sales. We can make adjustments with bids. We can make it show a little bit less frequently, but find a value to that keyword in that ad position inside our campaign ecosystem. It has some value to Amazon, and it's continuing to drive sales. Now, if a keyword is not driving sales, it's just spending and wasting money, yes, I'm perfectly fine with cutting it out of that spot. But in general, if it is delivering sales just more expensively, we'll try to curb or control that, but not cut it out. Anything that's delivering sales is delivering sales, and sales help rank, sales help sales. That's the name of the game, is to make sales first and make those be profitable sales as part of the work.
I think that's a great clarifying statement, because it's not that you would expect, there doesn't have to be a ton of negative matching. There should be some, and especially for like branded search terms, we want to make sure that our branded search terms are separated out. So it's more of a red flag when we see no negative matching. So there can be strategic reasons not to do a lot of negative matching, but there should be some in some campaigns.
Yeah. Typically what we end up seeing in accounts when it comes to accounts that we review is we'll see one of three things. The first thing that we'd like to see is that negations are happening on a regular basis across the account. Some kind of frequency, with the last time being sometime in the last 30 or 60 days. The next thing that we'll see is somebody who does no negations at all. There has never been a term negated ever anywhere in this account. And we see that. We see that a good amount of the time. It's just not a thing anybody ever thought to do. The third thing we'll see is negations that happened within a week of the campaign launching. Or within a week of the account starting to advertise. So on day one, they created all their campaigns. They had the best of intentions. They said, we're going to advertise, and we're going to advertise right. They built out a bunch of campaigns. They started to get sales and data, things to watch and things to do. They negated once, they negated twice, and then it became just a chore that never got repeated again. So we'll see people who stopped, we'll see people who started and stopped, and we'll see people who never did it.
I think that's a really good point. Negation shouldn't be your first stop. Bid adjustment should be kind of the first stop on the maybe this isn't the right thing tour. And negation would be over a much longer period of time, especially after a product launch when Amazon is still identifying exactly what your product is and what it should be relevant for.
Yeah, we want to be thoughtful about how we drive traffic. On one hand, we want to start by giving Amazon the most opportunity to bring us clicks and impressions and sales. On the other hand, we also want to be thoughtful about not wasting money and not giving Amazon.
Well, and I think both you and I have gone into account and we see they've got 10 products and 10 campaigns and they're spending $20,000 a month on those. That can be a little nerve-wracking, right? Because you want to have enough segmentation in your account where you have the levers that you need to pull as you approach seasonality, as you leave seasonality, if you're rerunning on Shark Tank, all of those things. It is normal to have multiple ad campaigns for different product, for the same product or for the same keywords, sometimes depending on how they're doing their segmentation, because that gives them more levers to be able to increase and lower and isolate exactly what is working. It is much more difficult to go build that in after the fact. And so we want to build that segmentation early in the account. Now, it might not all happen all at once. Sometimes, depending on somebody's strategy, it might need to happen in phases. But we do want to see over time that we have that segmentation so that especially if things get tighter with cash flow or we need to isolate something, especially if we're having an influencer pop up or we're going to be on Oprah's favorite things, we're able to adjust and account for that.
Yeah. How often are you getting products on Oprah's favorite things? That's
at least 2 or 3 a year.
Oh, wow. All right. I got some catching up to do. Yes, those tentpole, we call them, I don't know if tentpole is the right event. Tentpole events to me are Amazon's big deal days and Amazon's Prime days and things like that. But those events that happen, like getting on Good Morning America or getting on Shark Tank or getting on Oprah's favorite things, when you know those things are going to happen, you absolutely want to ramp up your advertising. And ideally, you'll want to be focused on the sorts of traffic which are going to be driven by the event. So in some cases, people will be talking about your brand. So for Shark Tank, people are typically talking about the brand that was shown, whereas in other places, people will be talking about the product itself. And in each case, you'll want to focus on the way people will be searching for you after that event, and you'll want to ramp up and you'll want to really make sure that every person searching for you absolutely needs to make sure that they see you front and center on top of page.
And as we're going through this, there are some people who have agencies that manage this for them. There's some people who want to learn this themselves. I think even if you have an agency, it helps the conversations if you understand some of the terminology that's being used. And if you're planning on doing it yourself, you really need to know these things because you might be doing things that you're not intending to do if you don't understand how these little levers work. Now, if you want to learn more about this, Amazon provides a free training. If you Google Amazon Learning Console, you have to have an ad account to sign in, or have to have an Amazon account in order to sign in. They have a certification for sponsored products. One or two of the questions is a little off. Sometimes they don't update it as quickly as they're updating the products. But for the most part, it's a really great place to get a primer on how the match types work, how the auctions work, and it will give you the vocabulary that you really need to have better, smarter conversations with whoever's running your ads for you, or for you to really better understand what is it that you're actually doing when you check that box so that you can get a better level of efficiency from your ad spend.
Yeah. So what would you say a smaller seller or a seller doing it on their own should be doing to leverage that?
I think that you'd want to have automatic campaigns, probably. Maybe not at first, but depending on what the strategy is, you should have an automatic campaign and understand the different match types within automatic. You should have several manual campaigns. And then you also are going to need to know about the bidding strategies, and to make sure that you understand how bidding strategies and those placement modifiers work, or you could end up spending a lot more money than you anticipated. And then it's also important to know that Amazon will kind of average things out. So they might go over your budget for a day, but it's averaged out for the month. All of those things are in that course, and they will help you better understand so you're not getting shocked. I think the biggest thing for smaller sellers is to reiterate that advertising is never set it and forget it. No matter how great the agency is, no matter how great their software is, there should be active changes that are happening. This was a while ago, but I think it was like 3 years ago, somebody came and said, I set up an automatic campaign 5 years ago. I just realized I spent $20,000. Never checked it. He never managed anything. So we need to be doing that on a regular basis. The other thing that's important to understand is there's a lag in the reporting for Amazon advertising. So just like you don't want to look at the stock market every day, you have to take into account that lag as you're making changes on the account.
It's funny, I'm thinking about that person who spent $20,000, and when I run the calculations, I don't think that's so bad. So if we think about it like this, 5 years is 60 months. 60 months is $20,000. $20,000 is about $330 a month. He basically had an automatic campaign running $10 a day, every day for those years.
But it had like a 500% hit cost.
You left that part out.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was $10 a day. I mean, yeah. Listen, it's like he left the TV on or something. Now, it was a waste of those $10. Absolutely. It was most likely a waste of those $10 every single day, but it's not the same as $20 a month.
Yes, which can happen. If you're not watching, if you don't set things up correctly. And especially on tentpole days, you need to be watching that spend. You need to be watching your sales. And so all of those things are things that you want to keep an eye on. But, today we just wanted to kind of give you the fundamentals of those match types. So, and because they're different and they behave different. And when you're looking at them all in the training, it kind of seems like just there's so much. But you want to think about it as Amazon's just giving lots of different ways for us to fine tune how our ad dollars are being allocated.
Yeah. Like you said, understanding match types is definitely a key. You shouldn't always you should know how to do everything in your account, but at a minimum, you should understand how things work. And when you understand how Amazon likes a shopper to behave, when you understand how and where Amazon can put an ad, definitely the building blocks to knowing what anybody else is doing in your account. They're the building blocks to understanding what software is doing with your account. A lot of times people will sign up for an automatic management software, and if they can't understand what the software is doing, they've got issues when the numbers are weird. So understanding the basics helps you understand how your product is selling and whether Amazon is showing your product properly or not.
And the other thing that I think is important is you might hear a webinar or see a YouTube where somebody says, this is the way to do ads. There is not a one way to do ads. It's going to be different depending on the product. It's going to be different depending on where the product is in its product life cycle, what the current trends are. There's a zillion variables. There are some wrong ways to do Amazon advertising, but there are also lots of right ways. So when I look at an account audit, what I'm really looking for is there strategy behind the decisions, and is that strategy working?
Yeah, unfortunately, almost all the time, there isn't strategy.
Unfortunately, yes. Usually we're
I've had
disappointed there.
overwhelmingly, ads are run without a strategy. And I don't know what we can do to teach the world about strategy, but this is a little bit of a start. Have an intention behind running an ad. Don't just say, oh, I need to run ads and make sales. No, think about what your ad will do, and that'll help your ads run better.
And it's okay to ask your ad agency, I don't understand why there's so many campaigns. And they'll say, oh, we're trying to segment this out, or we're trying to be able to do that out. Or can you tell me a little bit more about what your choices are for match types? Just because they do something different doesn't necessarily mean it's wrong, but asking those questions will help you kind of identify whether there is a strategy or they just threw it in a piece of software and they're just hoping for the best before you cancel, which unfortunately we do see.
Happens, but unfortunately, yes, agreed.
So we hope this episode has been helpful, and we hope that you've enjoyed listening to it as much as we have recording it. I know this one is a little bit more of a teaching module. Let us know whether you like these or you don't like these, so we know what content to make that really helps you make more money on Amazon, and we hope that you have a prosperous week.
Yeah, have a great one.
Thanks for listening to the Top of Search podcast. Have a burning question you would like answered or a topic you would like featured in a future episode? You can submit it at topofsearchshow.com. If you love the episode, subscribe and leave a review. Each month, we'll be selecting one reviewer to win a one-on-one call with your choice of Abe or Robin. Winners will be announced at the end of the first episode of every month.